So then when you get to leave Bad Boy at that Diddy and Bad Boy, what do you end up doing then?
Well, immediately I ended up producing Michael Jackson and Beyonce. So I definitely, left with confidence that I could produce records. Definitely had confidence that I could work with big artists. And immediately after that was over, I started working with those people. Started working with those artists, and that just opened up the door even more. That everybody wants to work with you if you're producing Michael Jackson or Beyonce, and you're with them. I took them places that they weren't going musically. Beyonce was talking about intimate relationships with a man. She had never done that before in Destiny's Child. So this was like her introduction into her womanhood, and just being a part of that and creating a song like Speechless for her, where she intimately talks about erotic encounters or an erotic encounter with her man, is something that had never happened before. Michael Jackson, when he was doing ballads at the time, were doing the Heal the World type ballads, and then since hadn't done a ballad about a girl since Lady in My Life. So having him do Heaven Can Wait and talk about a woman again, you're putting him in a space that he hadn't been in a very long time also. So it was just a great time for me to create things and try to lead artists in a direction that I thought that they should go, that they had never done before or hadn't done previously or in a long time.
Yeah. So, I mean, as much as I wanted to push it up, but so I've got, my top 4 songs. Favorite song ever is Lady in My Life. It's my favorite song ever. And then, it's a tie for 3. For second is Luther's A House Is Not a Home, Christopher Williams, All I See, and then Heaven Can Wait, Michael Jackson. And it is the song very as close to Lady in My Life as you can, because it is a side of Michael that we hadn't seen and heard in such a long time. I was living in LA, and it was on our radio, but they never released a video, and the politics with Sony. Now, it wasn't straightforward. It wasn't straightforward that you just wrote the song and gave it to Michael. What was the journey with that track?
So I was working on, I got the track from Nate Smith, and I was hearing, as soon as I was listening to it in its rawest form, I was like, this reminds me of Lady in My Life. And which is one of my favorite Michael Jackson songs of all time. And so when I heard that, I was just like, who do I know that knows Michael Jackson, like really knows the intricacies of Michael Jackson and his harmonies and his arrangements and things like that and his melodies. And I was working with a guy by the name of Teron Beale, who's a songwriter. And through the conversations of working with him, I knew he knew Michael, so differently than anybody else that I knew. So I got him the track, and I had this conversation with him about Michael Jackson. And so he wrote the song, and then he went and found a vocalist by the name of Q from Charlotte, North Carolina, who could emulate Michael's tone. And when I got the demo back, it felt just like a Michael Jackson record. But of course, you don't think you can get to Michael Jackson, the biggest artist in the world. So of course, we started shopping around, and I was trying to get it to Janet Jackson because I knew an A&R over at Virgin. And the thing about the Jacksons, when you really know their sound, it's a signature sound. It doesn't matter which Jackson is doing, whether it's Jermaine, whether it's Janet, whether it's Michael or the Jacksons. It's a certain sound and tone that family has that, is inescapable. So unescapable. So the thing about it is, I just heard a Jackson on the record. And at the time, Janet and Michael were the only two. And so when I shopped at the Virgin, they said that Janet wouldn't do the record because it's about death and nobody's going to do the record. So I was like, huh. So then I got a call from RCA. And at that time, Babyface's brother, Kevon Edmonds, had a solo deal. He had left after 7, had a solo deal. And they just offered us this crazy amount of money to do the record. And so I was just like, you can't really turn this down. So we did the record. And so we're in the studio with Kevon Edmonds, and he's like, Teron is trying to make me sound like Michael Jackson. I'm not Michael Jackson, I'm Kevon Edmonds. If you want to sound like Michael Jackson, you should just go get Michael Jackson. And he's saying this jokingly. you know, because of course
Okay.
sarcastically, he doesn't think that we can get to Michael Jackson. So he says that. And then I turned to my partner, Renard Pringle, and I was just like, you know what? He's right. It's like, who do we know is working with Michael Jackson? And that's when we found out Teddy was working with Michael Jackson. And it just so happens Teddy's assistant is from Charlotte, North Carolina, and we know him. So immediately we send the record to him, and he gets the record to Teddy Riley. And literally like 2 weeks later, we get a call in the middle of the night. Yo, you got to come to Miami to Michael's gonna record the record. And I was just like, what? I can't believe it. And the next, you know, in front of Michael Jackson, and we're having a real sincere conversation about the record. And like as I'm talking to him, you know, he's looking you dead in the eye. And it's just like halfway through the conversation, he just sounds like Charlie Brown's teacher. You can't hear anything that he's saying. like it just hit me. Like I was like, oh my God, this is Michael Jackson. Like I grew up watching him as a kid, and I don't know anybody on the planet that knew Michael Jackson and possible. And then the next thing you know, Michael Jackson's in the booth recording your record. And so it was just a very surreal moment. And at that point, it gave me the confidence, like if you can get to Michael Jackson, there's no artist on this planet that you can't get to. Yeah. And so it just gave me a lot of confidence, and it was just a magical moment. And I knew this record was special to Michael from what it was talking about. And I knew Michael could articulate that and interpret that in a way that nobody else could. So he ended up doing the record, and they ended up releasing it as the third single because it started doing well at Quiet Storm and on the radio.
Yeah.
But at that time, he had fallen out with Sony. So I can only imagine what that video would have looked like.
Yeah.
You know, record. So, you know.
Yeah. You recorded a version with Kevon. How did you just say to just leave what you were doing with him?
It wasn't easy. We had to bring the lawyers in, and the publisher, who was also the A&R for Kevon Edmonds, he knew the difference between recording a record on Michael Jackson versus recording it on Kevon Edmonds. So he understood, and he didn't have a problem getting the clearance to record, to release the Michael Jackson version of the record. Of course, Kevon Edmonds was very upset about it, but, you know, I look at it like, you know, I mean, Kevon, it's Michael Jackson. So I also learned at that point that when you have a vision for a record for an artist, you have to see that vision through. You can't do anything in this business for money, because after you get paid, you actually have to do the work. And a lot of times you give a record to somebody that is a lesser artist without realizing that had you put it on this artist, it would have been much bigger. So that's the first lesson I learned, that like, just don't take the check, because you still got to do the work. And, you know, you got to see your vision through.
Yeah. I mean, so the now for most of us, as I'm a massive Michael Jackson fan, but also I'm a massive Teddy fan. And so when I'm looking at Invincible and I'm seeing that, oh, how does he, so the credits would say that, you know, Michael co-produced with Teddy, then yourself and Nate Smith and stuff. So how does it work when you take the original track to them? Do they have to do things differently, or how does?
Teddy is more of just like sweetening the record by adding the strings to it, coaching Michael through the vocals, things like that, mixing it, being part of the mix with Bruce Swedien, just really understanding how to take it from a demo to the next level of the record. So, and at that time I developed a relationship with Teddy and learned so much about producing and sound and things like that, working with him, because I went on and produced Blackstreet through him, and just really understanding how to really come with a polished production and a mix on a record. I really learned that from Teddy during that period. And it was just great working with him. We couldn't have done that record had we not all collaborated together on that record. That was a collaboration and three creative minds just like really working hard. About 4 or 5 creative minds really working on that record. There's about 4 or 5 different people that worked on that record that allowed that record to be what it was, from the songwriters to the production, to the mixing, to the elements that we added to it.
Yeah, I mean, how is it like watching Michael in the studio? Because I've heard from other producers who you know, who give their, you know, how he does his stuff so unique. But for you, as a producer watching him, and then Teddy knows how to coach him. But how was it for you? What were you?
It was just different because first of all, Michael went and warmed up with his vocal coach for probably about 2 hours, which you've never seen that before because the younger artists that I work with would never do that. And this is his vocal he had worked with for years, and so seeing him work with his vocal coach before he goes in the studio, because he warmed up for like 2 hours and only sang for like 30 minutes. It was like tomorrow. So just really understanding his process. It was more about making sure that he was prepared to attack the vocals. And his main thing was, I hope I gave the vocals the justice that the demo did. He was so concerned about that, making sure that he captured the vibe of the demo. And he did, and it was great. And he really brought his thing to it.
No, so you're hearing the greatest ever recording artist say he hopes that he,
Right.
What does that sound like? I mean, hearing him being that humble about stuff like that.
Just seeing how humble he was really says a lot about that and him. And just a very sincere person. Like when he came in the studio, there was a certain air in the room that you could feel, an aura that was going on that he wasn't of this earth. Looking at him and hearing his conversation and seeing the sincerity in his conversation and everything that we talked about, you just saw somebody that was just so different than anybody that you've ever met before. So he was just very regal, and it was just I've never experienced anything like that before. So he was just very sincere, and you could feel he was very genuine in everything that he was saying and everything that he was doing in that day.
And so, I mean, the song itself, did you tell him that it was molded after The Lady in My Life? Did he know that was?
I don't think he knew that, but I could tell that he may have picked up on that, because I hear that comment a lot about that record, that it reminds him of Lady in My Life. And it was just so magical on how that was my original vision of the record. And he was able to interpret that. And then when the record came out, people often reference that record of like, this is his, version of the newest version of his Lady in My Life moment again.
Hey everyone, I want to thank you for being part of Halftime Chats. This new update is really about our membership, and I'm really excited to be able to fully launch the membership page. There will be things like full interviews from day one. As soon as the interview drops, you get access to it without any ads on it. There'll be some exclusive member-only videos that will just be some behind-the-scenes stuff and some other things that we will never be broadcast. For some members, you can be able to get actually 2 interviews, because I do have a backlog of almost 7 or 8 interviews that I don't even know when I'm going to be able to broadcast them. So you're able to get at least some of those up front, and some just behind the scenes stuff, because there's a lot of stuff that goes behind the scenes that I have never been able to talk about or release. For everyone else, the videos will still be the same. Over a week or a week and a half or 2 weeks, depending on how long it is. So everything stays the same. The polls stay the same. The community chats, the community stuff stays the same. But I think with the membership stuff, I'm able to add a little bit more and invest a lot more time and energy in really supporting the members. So I do hope you come on that ride with me. I appreciate the support, and this will just help me continue to invest in taking things to the next level. Take care.